Welcome back to Midway USA. My name is Henry Chan from 9-Hole Reviews, and today we're going to talk about 20 MOA bases and 20 MOA mounts. Why do you need them? When do you need them? Why does it matter for a precision rifle? Now, let's dial this back a little bit and think about how a precision rifle gets a round on target in the first place. This is not a precision rifle, this is a Mosin Nagant sniper rifle, but if you look at the rear sights and you bump it up to 2 kilometers, we are not shooting this 2 kilometers, by the way, you will see that the rifle is arced upwards because, of course, you reference your rear sight to your front sight and you can see it's angled up. That's because you are getting some incline on this rifle and trying to arc the projectile into a further target. The larger your incline for the rifle, the more distance it is able to put that projectile in towards. Now, let's look back at precision rifles, modern precision rifles that we see it. These all have different built-in MOA bases or mounts. Why do we want a 20 MOA base or a 20 MOA mount? Now, partially that we need to look at how does an optic work. For an optic, you zero it at, let's say, 100 yards. You can have a dial on top and it would elevate the rifle or elevate your point of impact by giving your rifle more incline. Now, that, however, how much you could dial most certainly is a limiting factor because it doesn't go unlimited. So let's say this Vortex Razor HD AMG has 27.5 mils of dial. Of that, if you half that, because of course, let's assume that this zeroes at a zero plane, which it doesn't, but let's assume it does, you are looking at 13.8 mils of over travel. That gives you 13.8 mils of incline in order to arc it into a target. Now, that rifle hits a 1,000 yard target with 11 mils. So that is actually well within the performance bracket of that optic. But sometimes we just want a little bit more incline to push it to a longer distance. Now, despite this having a 0 MOA base, we have a 20 MOA spur mount, 20.6 or 6 mils of elevation built into this spur mount. That gives the optic itself an incline to further push the rifle to a longer distance by being able to overall build in a greater incline to the rifle. Some other rifles, however, you'll see it using a base that has a 20 MOA incline built into it. Now, this is my Remington 700, is actually more of a traditional rifle you would see in America. And I use rings. Rings, of course, have 0 MOA built into it. So the MOA incline that I get from this to help my optic out comes from the base. Now, some rifles, let's say this semi-automatic AR-15, shoots 5.56. Yes, you can shoot 5.56 at a longer distance, but one, how often are you doing that? What is the probability of you doing that? And two, what's the type of energy that you're transferring to a 1,000 yard plus target? And so when Josh looked at that and he knew that this rifle hits 800 yards at about 8.3 mils, that's still well within the overall travel that this optic has. And because of that, he knew he wasn't typically going to take this past 800 or very seldomly so, and that the optic had a reticle built in to where even if he bottomed it out, he could use a reticle to add even more incline to it. He decided to use a 0 MOA mount on the, of course, 0 MOA base. Now, that brings us to the final topic of why do you want 20 MOAs built into it? What's your use case? That's the biggest thing that we really want to ask ourselves, right? What is the caliber that you're shooting? What is the typical distance that you're shooting? And look back at your optic. Does the overall travel really cover some of those bases? And is that even effective at that range? Now, there's a lot of things to think about before you buy whether a 20 MOA base or a 20 MOA mount. In some very extreme cases, not typically recommended for people, some people can put a 20 MOA base with a 20 MOA mount on top of it achieving 40 MOA or 12 mils worth of overall travel, 13 mils worth of extra incline to their rifle. Now, the problem you run into there is that some rifles actually you wouldn't be able to zero it because you're giving it way too much incline, that it bottoms out on the other end for you to zero at a shorter distance. Hope you guys all found something useful out of all this. Let us know in the comments what you think, what your setup is. And until then, thanks for tuning in to Midway USA, and we'll see you guys on the range.